What's up, guys? Thanks for joining us for another episode of Cory's Car Review. I met this gentleman a few months ago at the local car show, Coffee and Cars here in Oklahoma City, and he was telling me about his beautiful car and the history of it, and asked him if he'd like to do a video with us, and he said he'd love to, and he'd love to share a story. So we're here in Edmond, Oklahoma. David, I want to tell you thanks for doing this with us.
My pleasure, Cory.
David Hornbeek, a cool story you got. 1948 Chevy Fleetmaster convertible. And why don't you tell us kind of the history and how it started? And
well, my mom and dad bought this. My dad bought this car in 1951, right before he and my mother got married. They graduated from high school in June of 1951, and they got married later on in November of that year. And my dad told me, he said, I knew I had to go to work and I had to get a dependable car. And so he said, I bought this car. So this car has been in my family since 1951, and it was a one-owner car before he bought it. So it was only 3 years old, and it didn't have a whole lot of miles on it. Now, I think the reason that my dad wanted this car was because I since have found out this was the first year that Chevrolet was ever the pace car at the Indianapolis 500. And in 1948, this was the first pace car that Chevrolet ever had. And my dad, being a car nut, he was essentially, I don't know if you remember when the pace cars were out when you were, it was like, oh my gosh, that's a pace car, right?
Yeah.
Well, he was driving a pace car and got married and then had children. And but I can remember riding in this car when I was a kid. And then my mom and dad died within 4 months of each other about 8 years ago. And my brother, who drove this car when he was 16 years old, and my dad had told us where he had parked it. It was in a mini storage, and it hadn't been moved for 35 years. So the drum brakes were rusted shut, and the tires were flat. We had to get a wrecker with a winch, and he just slid the car out and up onto a flatbed, and then we took it in and we started working.
oh, wow. Well, I love showcasing cars, obviously being a car nut myself, but when you can showcase a car, then you've got an awesome story to go with that. It makes it that much better.
Well, thank you.
Because it's one thing if I was to go out and purchase a car like this and do a video on it, but I'm not going to have all the stories to go with it that make it that much more unique.
Well, you know, one of the things that the reason I wanted to restore this and get it back up running is because it's an homage to my mom and dad, you know.
Right.
I remember riding around in this car with my sister, and she was born before I was, and we could stand up in the back seat, and we could put our hands like this on the back of the seat, and Dad would be driving and Mom would be over here, and we could talk to him. Now, this was long before car seats and seat belts and all of that stuff.
Before we really even knew how dangerous we were being.
That's right.
Well, I say we were being. I wasn't dangerous because I wasn't even talking.
But these cars are this is like a tank. I mean, when you ran into cars, even at 20 miles an hour, you might dent the fender, but you didn't bend the frame, and you didn't bend, you didn't do thousands of dollars worth of damage back then. We did a frame off restoration. We went in and took the body off the car, stripped it down to the paint, looked at the chassis, and the chassis was in amazing condition. And in fact, so this is the original chassis. We did come in and put a Mustang 2 front clip on the front, so it handles and steers a lot better. Replaced it with four-wheel disc brakes, not drum brakes. And put an automatic transmission, put a turbo hydromatic automatic transmission, but I shifted it on the column because the original car was a 3-speed, 3 on the tree.
I love those. Those are so. I've only drove a couple of cars or trucks that have that on the column, and it's kind of weird to get used to, but it's the nostalgia is pretty cool.
Well, I've had a lot of people ask me, why didn't you put the shifter in the floor? And it was like, because it wasn't in the floor.
Right.
And I can, as a kid, I can remember even my sister and I would sometimes, if Mom would slide over beside Dad, we would just lie down in the back seat so it looked like they were still dating. They were so young. I mean, you know, they were like 18 years old when they got married, and my dad was like 20 years old when I was born, and it was a different time back then.
Well, it's funny that you said your dad wanted to get something dependable, so we bought a Chevy.
Well, my dad ended up working for whoever owned the GMC truck dealership for 50 years, and he eventually became the new and used truck sales manager. But I am indoctrinated GM. I love GM cars. I love Chevrolets. You say, well, why didn't you drive this car when you were 16? Well, my sister and I were so close. My dad fixed this car up, and my sister started driving it when she was 16. So when I turned 16, she was still driving it. So he got me a 1951 GMC pickup truck, and I drove it, and it was a 3 on the tree, and that's what I drove. And then my brother, who was 3 years after me, Terry, went to college, and he got this, and he named this car Lester.
Oh, really?
Yes. The nickname on this car is Lester, after Lester Flatt from Flatt and Scruggs. They're a bluegrass.
Okay.
music.
Okay. Now what was was this an original color, or
No, original. I'm sorry, I cut you off. But
no, that's
original color was black, and it had a white top, and then it had a gray cloth interior in it. And then when Terry turned 16, my dad painted this car candy apple red and put red vinyl interior, and back then vinyl was considered cool,
right?
But I always wanted a yellow Corvette, and so since I never got a Corvette, this is my 1948 Corvette Cabriolet.
Yeah. Well, the color is I mean, it's beautiful. Is it a period correct color, or is it, how did you?
There were actually for Cadillac and Buick, you could get this color.
Okay.
I don't know if this color was period correct for Chevrolet.
Okay.
But it is period correct for Cadillac and Buick. And I may send you some pictures of that.
Oh yeah, yeah. We'll add some pictures, and we're also going to put a picture of, unless Xander already did, because he's probably already on top of it. When you mentioned about the pace car,
yes,
and you said the decals were actually hand painted on the door.
Back in the 40s and 50s, they didn't have decal making companies, so they painted them by hand. And the original pace cars had hand painted graphics. In fact, they had Chevrolet in red, and it was painted here, and then there was a banner that swooped across, and hopefully we'll have an image of that you guys can see.
I bet he's already put it on there. It's either here or somewhere.
So now the original 48 Chevrolets, this bezel was color coded to the car, and then but my dad added these on especially because he wanted chrome, and the Cadillacs and the Buicks had chrome bezels.
Oh, okay.
The Chevrolets, this was painted. But this little eyebrow, that was an aftermarket deal, and it's unique to the car. Originally, the hood. This is the original hood emblem, but these were glass. And,
oh, really?
And they're very, very. The one that was on here when we finally pulled it back out was broken. But I found this one, and I actually like it in blue.
That looks cool. I didn't realize they were glass.
If it's clear, you can't. It goes away. You can't see it. And the way these colors are, like with the red bow tie and the blue on here, it just really pops.
Yeah, I love the front end of this. And we don't have anything like this on our channel, so it's.
What's interesting also is that this is a 48, If you would go back as far as the 40 and the 41 Chevrolets, the cars are very, very similar. What happened was Chevrolet was building this body style. The real difference between the 40s and the before the war and after, it was the fender stopped before the door right in here. But the car itself is essentially the same. But between 1942, 43, 44, and 45, they didn't make any cars.
Because of the war.
Because of the war, and they had shut down all of those factories in Detroit. Well, they didn't shut them down. They flipped them over, and they were making tanks and jeeps and cannons and airplanes and trucks and everything they needed for the war. So when they came back and started making cars again, they just kept this body style and started changing it a little bit. They pulled this fender line back a little further and did some other things. But if you see a car, a 40 or 41 Chevy, you'll see it's very, very similar to a 48.
Yeah.
And 48 and a 49.
Man, I love the wheels and the original hubcaps and.
Now I have to admit to you, the original hubcaps have a little blue wing on the here, and this is actually a Chevrolet pickup truck hubcap. But I liked it better because it was similar. I mean, simpler, and I love the red letters that are embossed into that baby moon hubcap.
Oh yeah.
So I had to do a little bit of work to get that pickup truck cap to work, but it does. And then I painted out this is a beauty ring, but I painted the outside part of the wheel red to match the same color as the letters, and that's a little extra touch that.
Oh yeah. That looks cool. And I want to point out, because for the younger kids, Xander, obviously, probably, and my kids, they don't know what cars are like without air conditioning. So I want to show you where the air conditioning is. It's right here. So that will flip up, and air will go through that inside there, and then come out the vents right here.
Well, the other place the air conditioning is right here, and that is this has got a crank on it, and you can actually turn this all the way around.
Oh,
and it would suck, grab the air and blow it across you like this.
Call a 240 air conditioner, 2 windows down, 40 mile an hour. I've had a couple cars like that.
This Chevrolet had a vent window in their cars until 1968. 67, they still had the vent windows, but in 68, they went to what they called astro ventilation, and they got away with the vent window, and they started pulling air in from under the wheel well and brought it through a duct over here. And so if you ever see the difference between like a 68 Camaro and a 67 Camaro is it doesn't have the vent window, and right in that corner you'll see astro ventilation right on the glass.
Oh, cool. Well, it's a beautiful car.
This has been redone also in that this is all 100% leather, and we had the vinyl was not original, and so when we started working on this, we tried to figure out, well, what can we do to the leather to make it look good? And I always liked the seats in a 1968 and a 1969 Corvette and Chevelle, the SS Chevelles. And so we took a picture of those, and this is essentially, if it turned back down on a bucket seat in the Corvette, and this is how that pattern was. And so what we decided, because this is a fold-up, is that we take that all the way across, but this matches or we got as close as we could to the leather seats in a 1968, 69 Corvette or Chevelle.
Oh, that's cool. My dad, my grandpa bought a 77 El Camino brand new, and my dad, he passed it down to my dad, and that's the same.
It's got the
same style. Yeah. Well, we'll walk around. You can check out all around the car, and then we'll show you what's under the hood. So we were talking about this earlier, but originally these didn't have backup lights.
That's correct. They did. Backup lights weren't required until sometime in the 60s.
Okay.
So most cars, you know, in the late 40s and 50s, I don't know if many of them have backup lights, or they might have been an extra.
Yeah.
What's crazy is when you see the extra sheets on a car that was built in the 40s or the 50s, that might be $5 extra.
Right, right, yeah.
You know, the price of this car, I think brand new, was $1,200.
Yeah, well, we were talking about it earlier. The average price of it was $1,200, and then a gallon of gas average price was 16 cents.
Well, by the time I turned 16, I can tell you the average price a gallon was about 23 cents. So it only went up about 7 cents between 1948 and 1968.
And now in a week it goes up 70 cents.
Yeah. Paying almost $4 a gallon.
Right.
Now.
Well, let's I'll have you open the hood and we'll show you the motor. All right, so we'll show you guys under the hood. As you mentioned, originally 216.
Yeah, originally this was a 216 straight six, and somewhere about 1955 or 56, I was born. My dad cracked the block in the original engine. So, but Chevrolet didn't make a V8 and put a V8 in their car until 1955, and so my dad put the same motor that I had in that GMC pickup, I think it was a 238 straight six, and we put a truck motor in here. It was a little larger, had a little more horsepower.
Yeah.
And when my sister started driving this when she turned 16, it still had that truck motor in it. But so my mom and dad died about 8 years ago, and it was about 4 months apart. And when my brother and my dad had told me he had parked this car in a mini warehouse, and it hadn't been driven since my brother drove it. It was in that mini warehouse 35 years. The tires were flat, the drum brakes were rusted shut. So we got a wrecker with a winch, and we're able to slide it up, literally pull it out on the flat tires and slid it out up onto a flatbed truck. And then we took it in and started working on it. And I started talking with my brother, and I said, well, it's not the original engine. Let's put something in this thing to make it go.
Yeah.
And so this is a Chevrolet short block 350 with 350 horsepower.
Oh, that's perfect.
Oh, it's easy to work on.
Bulletproof motor.
Yes, it is. And I still know how to work on these. You know, I've second guessed myself as to whether I should put an LS motor in this thing or not. But the LS motors, I can't tune them up.
Yeah.
I can tune this car.
Well, something like this, you want to stay, even though that's not necessarily period. Well, I guess it is kind of period correct. But you want something like this, you'd want to stay with this. And I love you got the chrome alternator, and then the chrome air conditioner, and the valve covers, and the air breather too, cover, and it just. Everything looks nice.
Well, you can also notice we've got headers.
Yeah, I was just ready to say I like those headers.
That's a Holley 750 high rise.
Okay.
And there's a high rise intake manifold. And then we also took the front end and put a Mustang 2 clip on it. And that's a double wishbone suspension on this.
Okay.
It drives 100% better than it ever drove before. It is really a fun car to drive.
Man, it looks so clean in there with all these braided lines, and man, that looks nice. Well, we'll have you show us the inside, and we'll go take it for a drive.
Okay. There's been a big program to paint some of the backs of these buildings and do murals.
Yeah, they're cool looking.
In fact, the one I like a lot is on this side of this building right here. See, this is Welcome to Edmond.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. All right, oh, you are, okay. Yeah, that's a cool, I like that sign, or that on the side of that building.
So this is Broadway, and 2nd Street up there is the old US 66 from Tulsa came into Edmond and then turned south and went down Broadway and to Oklahoma City.
Oh, okay. My dad, he's a big Route 66 buff. I don't really even know how he got into it, because he was younger than I am when he got started, and we made several trips to California on Route 66 when I was a kid.
Well, I think, and I may be, I believe that this car actually went to California when I was about 3 years old, and back then it did not have air conditioning in it, so we would, and when it got hot and we were in the desert, Dad would put up the convertible top, and we had these things that were like, they put water in them, and you roll the windows up, and then they spun like turbines, and they blew moist air into the car, and that was the air conditioning at the time, the state-of-the-art air conditioning at the time, and it would get the inside really moist, you know. But in the desert, it was so dry that that moist air felt good compared to the desert air.
Man, how cool would it be to drive all the way to California in this? I mean, that would be, and back then it was just, that was the only way.
Well, remember, yeah, it was hardly any airline travel back then. But I remember going to my family. Disneyland, I believe, opened in 1955, and and I was born in 54, and I think in 1957 or 58, my dad drove us out there, and we went to Disneyland, and I was only like 3 or 4 years old. And I can still remember some of the things that we did on that trip. I remember getting on the big paddle boat, and that, you know, I can remember singing songs with my mom and dad. The V8 in, I changed this out to a 12-volt system. It was a 6-volt system.
Okay.
So the radio, I still have the radio, but it was huge. And to get the air conditioning in here, I can't put the entire radio the way it is back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the face of the radio, put it back, and then put a digital stereo in the glove box.
Okay.
And have a more up-to-date system.
Yeah.
But I'm also reluctant to put any speakers in the doors, and people are telling me now that I can get speakers that I could just set like in the back seat, and it can Bluetooth rather than wire it.
Right.
And you can hear that. So I'm going to try to. I'm working on that.
Or even put one, maybe a couple under the seat. Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Where you can't even see it.
That's a great idea, Cory. I hadn't even thought of that.
Then you can play some Nelly in here and get the.
Well, I'm thinking more of the. I got my license in the late '60s. I'm thinking more of the Beach Boys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go with the Beach Boys, Jan and Dean, and
yes.
Yeah.
I like your buggy.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You get thumbs up all the time.
This car attracts attention.
That's such a cool feeling. In high school, I had a 70.5 Z28, and that's the way it was. And man, that was so cool. And then it got to where it was normal, and then you sell it, and you're like, oh, no one likes my daily driver now.
You know the thing that if you've ever owned a Corvette, there's a deal called the Corvette wave. And you're driving, if you see another Corvette, you just kind of raise a finger or raise your hand like this. But
kind of like the side wave for motorcycles.
Yes. Well, I can tell you, I get the Corvette wave from Corvettes when I drove by in this car.
That's cool.
And I give it back to them.
Yeah, that's cool. Man, I love how simple everything was. I mean, it's all metal and chrome. You got the Chevrolet right here, and then the bow tie right here.
Yes.
You got all these.
And this is exactly how it was set up. There were 4 instruments over there, and the speedometer was right here.
Now, are these the original gauges for this car?
No, because this is a 12-volt system.
Okay.
The 6-volt. These are 12-volt gauges. but we tried to get them period correct. They're not graphically identical, but they're period correct.
Okay. They look good. Man, this is such a cool car. Of course, you got the ashtray right up front. I don't even. What's weird is now I don't even think cars have ashtrays anymore.
Don't.
Yeah,
It's become a taboo.
Yeah, I know. The very first car I purchased for this channel was a '77 Bonneville, and in the back seat there were ashtrays in the armrest in the back seat. And my youngest daughter, she was asked me what the Wi-Fi password was, and asked me what those were, and
the Wi-Fi password. Yeah. Well, there's no Wi-Fi password for a '48 Chevy.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
Enjoyed watching this video. David, I want to tell you how much I appreciate you doing this for us.
It was really fun.
Yeah,
Cory, I had more fun than I thought I was going to have.
And all the thumbs up. I don't think we went anywhere where people weren't giving you thumbs up. And
hey, you get that Corvette wave.
Yeah. I hope you guys love this video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And make sure you share this video with all your friends. I guarantee you there's people that are going to want to see this car. And stay tuned for the next video. I can't wait to show it to you.